All right, well, we're going to have folks coming in and out, and we'll just be patient with them, and we'll let them get settled in. I always like to acknowledge when I start these things that I do come from a farm family, and I'm very grateful for all that they have shared, contributed, and it has definitely benefited my farm business and my I don't know, my well-being, if I could say that. So I do grow, most of the seeds I grow are grown on contract with a handful of different seed companies from the U.S., and I've been doing that now for about 14 years. And I feel like having a relationship with my seed company is like having a relationship with my aunt or my uncle. We have to talk, we have to touch base, so it's really important. Besides doing the contract seed production, I also do a seed packet business, itty bitty. I don't really want to talk about it because I don't know what I'm doing with it. And then the other piece is that about 8 years ago, I started growing wheat on my farm, just a few acres for crop rotation. But then I thought, crap, this is a seed, and I should be doing something with it. So I started cleaning it and bought a flour mill, and now I grind just whole wheat flour for bakeries in the Treasure Valley area where I live. So that's kind of my main revenue stream on my farm. But in the midst of these 15 years, I've made a bucket load of mistakes, and I'm going to talk about some of them today to share with you my big learning curves so that maybe you can learn from them too. And then just to be really honest about my farm and how I operate, I have been known to ship dirty seed to seed companies. I'm a one-person cleaning machine, and I get overwhelmed and backed up, and I call the company and I say, I know you've got X, Y, and Z equipment. Can I get this to a point, and can you finish cleaning it? And it's okay. You know, they're typically okay with it. I've chosen not to invest in some seed cleaning equipment, and that's the compromise I make. They may charge me for a little bit of their time, which they should. It's okay. Peace of mind in the wintertime when you're trying to clean seed is a good thing. All right. So let's get started. We're going to talk mainly about seed cleaning, but as you're going to hear from me, harvesting and cleaning go hand in hand in the growing season. So do we even have to clean seed? You know, that's the first thing I'd ask myself if I was going to grow seed. Do I have to clean it? If you're growing it for your own farm production, and if it's pretty clean, there's no weed seed in it, maybe you don't have to clean it, you know? You could save yourself a pretty important step or timely step. And, you know, of course you want to work backwards and ask yourself, how am I going to plant the seed? Because if you have a lot of trash and other plant material in there, is it going to work in how you plant your seeds? If you're doing it by hand, you really probably don't have to clean it. And but if your seed is going out into the world, then yes, you need to clean your seed. And for me, you know, it's seed packets. If you're going to do it for a food product like wheat or dry beans, definitely you want to have very clean seed. It's got your name on it. It needs to look good when they open up that packet or open up. You know, they don't want to see, I don't know, clods in your dry beans necessarily. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to be a seed cleaner. You can also hire it done. In some farm communities, there are people who make their living cleaning seed. They probably don't want to clean 10 pounds, but they might clean 10,000 pounds. So there's a scale there that you need to look at. But it is an option, so you don't have to clean seed. So we've talked a little bit about wet and dry seed, and I really wasn't prepared to spend that much time talking about, you know, the botanical differences, and there's a lot more people up here who are skilled at that than I am. So, but basically, you know, wet seed comes from the fruit of a plant. It comes from tomatoes and peppers and the melons and squash plants. And dry seed is a crop that has dried down on the plant material. So it's in a pod, it's in a husk, it's in an umbel. And so those are the considerations, you know, when you're thinking about your fall work, as well as, you know, how much of each do I have when it comes to trying to capture that seed from those crops. Okay. So for wet seed processing, I find that I take way too many wet seed contracts in the fall. I don't know why, but I get backed up, and I don't like being behind. So, you know, the wet seed timing is an issue for me on my farm, and so just know that I feel like for wet seed it takes longer to gather the crop in, and then it takes time to also process that crop as well. And so, but there are some plus sides to wet seed, and we use in the wet. How I do it at my farm is we just use a decanting method. We've scooped the seeds out of a pepper or a melon or a tomato. Well, not even really a tomato. We crush tomatoes, but basically we've taken the fruit out. We've let it set. Maybe you know, it's going to get really complicated here, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details. But we've let it set, probably in a fermenting in water or maybe not water. It just depends on the crop. And after so much time, then we start doing a decant method, and that's when we are using water to float the trash, the immature seed of that crop. And we're floating it off with water, and it's just basically filling up a bucket or a garbage can, and we're floating it off with the water. And what happens is, magically, the really number one good seed is staying in the bottom of that barrel as the other material is floating off with the water, and it flows off. It's beautiful. It takes, it's a really clean method. You're spending a lot of time with the water and the pouring off, and but you're getting very clean seed. It's really clean, and it doesn't take a lot of fancy equipment if you don't want to. You know, you can just use knives and other, you know, real simple techniques. And if you want to, there is the Millet wet seed vegetable separator that's available. I have never used one. This, I think, is coming from Bill Reynolds' farm. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I also want to thank my comrades. They sent me pictures, and so I'm going to forget which picture came from where. So the Millet seed separator has a crushing mechanism at the front, and so it'll basically crush it like a cider, like if you're making apple cider. It's just going to crush it, and then the pulp goes out on this screen, and it hits the spray, the water spray, and the spray is forcing the seed through the screen and keeping the pulp on top. And that's about all I know about it. And a lot of people end up modifying them. I do know that much, and so it's just, you know, it's out there, and I think people are getting some benefit from it as well.
We also use a cider crusher.
Put a motor on it and speed it up.
Yeah, be prepared to have a salsa party.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have a lot of material, whether it's peppers or tomatoes, you're going to have a lot of material that sort of gets cast aside. And really, at the small level, you really don't want to use a millet separator. I mean, I think if you're only probably doing a couple of pounds, the bucket method is probably just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then you're looking at this incredibly clean wet seed. What do you got to get it dried down, and you got to get it dried down fast. I live in a desert climate, and we can have easily 90-degree days plus in September, and so we try and keep the greenhouses where we're drying the seed down. We try and keep them around 90 degrees, maybe not much hotter than that. And we're using just a lot of what I call the wire cage fans. They sound like a little airplane prop, once you get it set to high speed. And they're just constantly moving the air. And my goal is to have that seed dried down to touch. I want it dried to touch in 24 hours, if not sooner. And typically we can get that done if we start decanting first thing in the morning, get it on the screens by maybe 9 or 10 a.m. And then we come back through the greenhouses 3 to 4 times a day, and we're just kind of stirring it up with our hands and moving the seed around. Those fans will start blowing dry seed, once the seed has dried down. And so I have a good buddy that owns a window shop, and he's happy to give me all the screens I want. And so if we get too much air movement, we will then put screens on top of those screens. Then that's just a good way to trap the seed between the 2 screens, all right? So this is, let me find the pointer. So this is a seed germination chamber from Gathering Together Farm, and they repurpose it in the fall time when they start doing their wet seed crops. And so this is setting inside of a greenhouse, and it's how they can quickly germinate crops in the springtime. But then Frank and his crew repurpose it for drying seed down. So there's fans down here pulling in air from the greenhouse, and this side will drop down, and I bet you it does a really slick job of drying seed down. Overnight. Yeah, yeah. So this is just watermelon seed to show you how shiny and glossy it is when it comes out of the bucket. So dry seed is, I find that it's a little more forgiving for me. I can capture the seed, put it in a seed box or a garbage can, and come back to it and work on it. Whereas the wet seed, I just feel like I need to be paying closer attention to those crops. So it's more time-consuming to clean because of the way we've harvested it. All right, so let me take you through some of these steps. We've tossed it. We've driven on it. We've even danced on it. We've crushed it. And sometimes we get to combine it. And these techniques that I just walked through real quick, they're really good at separating the seed from the plant. But we're not separating the plant material from the seed when we do that, except for the combine. And so that's where it gets a little bit complicated when it comes to seed cleaning, because we have to start removing the trash from the dry seed. So combines are handy. And the more time you spend setting it up, the less time you probably will spend cleaning seed. There's just so many variables in a combine that can make life easier. Just a quick side note, when I got started cleaning or growing seed, I was afraid of small seeded crops. I was really afraid because I didn't know if I could clean them. I mean, I was afraid. I didn't want to. It's like beans, peas, great, I can do it. And so then I ended up buying an all crop, and it just really changed my business because I was able to work with lots of different small seeded crops. And by using the all crop and the screens and the chaffers, sieves, air, I was able to get cleaner seed for some of those smaller crops. Before we get into some seed cleaning tips and equipment, I want to just talk about a few more things to consider before we get to seed cleaning. And that is, much more related to harvesting. And timing harvests to minimize the trash that you incorporate with your seed has been one of those most obvious epiphanies to me. But there's times when I do very little lettuce seed. So there's times when that lettuce seed is just sitting perfectly in its little cup and it wants to be released, but yet the plant material is still wet. And that's a perfect time for me to thrash seed out of the lettuce because I can take and shake it into a garbage can. We're only talking maybe no more than 5 pounds. I can take and shake it into a garbage can, and I'm grabbing maybe 3 or 4 stalks and I'm just shaking it. The seed and the down are all falling into the bottom of that garbage can, but yet I have really kind of left the structure of that lettuce intact. There's still leaves, there's still branches attached to that main stem. And so I just kind of realized, gosh, I got to pay attention to this timing because it really saves us on seed cleaning time. Same thing with buckwheat. I don't even grow more than 100 pounds of buckwheat. It's just for my own farm production. And we'll come in and we'll cut it with a sickle bar mower, a couple inches above the soil level, and just let it fall. And then if the weather's not threatening, we can let it sit there for just a few days, and then come back in and we drive on it like a four-wheeler, and leaves very little plant material incorporated with the buckwheat, and we're not damaging the buckwheat by driving on it. Four-wheelers have those nice big inflated tires, and they're really forgiving. And this is a shot from, I think, Andrew, right? So what is that? Is that a kale? Okay, so this is a kale crop. And you see how they've cut it above the soil, and then they lay it on a landscape fabric. And there's no roots attached to those, so there's no chance of dirt getting into your seed crop. And that's another really important thing to think about when you're wanting to bring in your crop is, leave the roots in the field if you can, and just leave the dirt out, because sometimes you get down to a seed and some clods that are the same size, and it gets really hard to start cleaning it at that point. These are some...
Yeah, just one thing on that, because that's a very good point. I recently cleaned a bunch of broccoli seed, and I was trying to use the Frank Morton method of pulling it out by the root.
I don't do that with broccoli.
No, you do it with lettuce. Yeah. I was, my thinking was, was that because it was still a little bit green, the broccoli, the pods are just slightly green, so I wanted to pull them out. I brought them into a greenhouse on a piece of landscape cloth with the roots off the tarp, thinking that there'd be more translocation of nutrients up. And I don't know if that's true or not, because Andrew maybe is fine with and that would have been a lot easier to just cut them off at the ground level. But I was pulling them by the roots, and I haven't done the experiment on it. But the ones, I had one batch that I kept off the roots off the tarp, and it was great. But the second batch, oops, it got a little dirt on there, and you're right. You're absolutely right. But that's something I often wonder, whether leaving the roots on is actually helping finish out the seed so it's more mature. That's just a question if anybody knows the answer to that.
I'm sure that I learned the lesson the hard way with some leek seed I was doing. I'm sure I brought in roots with dirt on it, and my thought was, well, dang, if I leave all this vegetative matter and the roots, the seed's just going to keep maturing. It's going to be really good and viable. But I probably over the years, getting rid of the dirt is more valuable than trying to thinking that you're finishing off that crop by leaving the roots on. So this is I love doing biennial onions and leeks, and so this is some onions, and where I live, there's a lot of onion production, and so I've just learned from the other growers about how I want to approach it, I guess. And so we leave at least 12 inches of stem on when we cut. That's more than what the larger conventional farmers do. And we used to go through and cut those the stems off before we ran them through the all crop. And then one year we didn't get around to it, and man, having those stems on the umbels as they went through the all crop really helped with the thrashing, as it's getting in there and hitting the cylinder. I don't know what was going on. I'm not that mechanically inclined, but so now instead of taking the time to cut them off, we just leave them on, and it really helps with the all crop thrashing. We've already talked about this a lot. I'll just tell you my own personal story. I try and direct seed everything I can. I don't want to pay for the labor of transplant costs, so we do a lot of direct seeding, which then enables me to do a lot of tractor cultivation. And that toolbar will be retooled at least 4 times during the growing season with different cultivator tools. And so one year I took this must be after I got my all crop, but I took a chrysanthemum contract. This is Shungi Ku. And you don't have any idea to know how excited I was to get a flower contract, because I tried from the get-go to get flower seed contracts, and it was really hard, and I won't go down that road too far. But so I think this is like one of the first flower seeds I took. And so I do believe in having really weed-free fields. I don't think any of us can stress that enough. It's just so important. But so, the chrysanthemum got cultivated. I'm sure we had a crew hand weeding it. And then, of course, the canopy gets huge. And I noticed that I had some grass seed growing in at the lower end of my rows. And I was like, nah, I don't need to deal with it. It'll be fine. This is going to a seed company that has a lot of cool equipment. They can deal with it, So we go in, we sickle bar mow it, cut it down, and let it dry and feed it through the all crop. And then I probably cleaned it, and then I sent it off to the company. They could not get the grass seed out. It was just so much like the chrysanthemum seed. It was a loss, huge loss. If I had taken an hour to 2 hours and just pulled that grass seed out, when I saw it as a pressure, I would have had a little more money in the bank, kind of thing. So, I'm of the belief that you have to keep your seed production fields so much more clean than the vegetable seed fields. Not vegetable seed, but vegetable fields. It just has to be clean. And especially if you're using combines, weed plants can plug your combine too. So this is my D slide. So we're going to talk about deburring, debearding, declumping, and is that it? Just D. So sometimes you don't want to do this until after you've cleaned your seed. It just depends on the crop, and I threw it in here because I just didn't know where else to put this slide. So excuse me for maybe interrupting the process. But this, some seed has those nice little hairs on them. And other seed, like tomato seed, when it's drying down, it dries in clumps. And carrot seed is another crop that has hairs on it, and it makes it hard for it to move. In planters. So sometimes we have to go in and physically remove those little hairs. And so, I'm sorry, I'm not a botanist. I'm not speaking great technical terms here. But this is a bucket deburr that is used, that I first saw at Nash's farm. And it's just a 5-gallon bucket. You have to have a lid. And they've taken threaded rod and drilled through the sidewall of the bucket. And then there's a shaft that will eventually be attached to just a handheld drill. And on the shaft, offset from the rod that's in the bucket, are more rods attached to the shaft. And so the idea is that you pour your seed into the bucket, and you probably want to have the seed somewhat, you probably want this bucket 2/3 high. I'm not quite sure. You have to experiment. Then what you'll do is you'll put the bucket on, or the lid on the bucket over the shaft, then you attach the shaft to the drill. And it's a really nice little technique to get those little hairs off of your seed. Or I was asking Nash this morning, and they also use it to kind of declump the spinach seed as well. Obviously, you're not going to do this for 10,000 pounds of carrot seed, but you might do it for 100 pounds or so of carrot seed. And it's very dusty. Wear a mask. Really effective. And we've taken the whole deburring, dehulling idea down to these are paint and mud mixers that you just buy at the hardware store. And I'm always picking up new models and designs and seeing how they work and everything. So we've used them very, very effective in wet seed processing. It'll knock pepper seed off the placenta. It will free up melons from all that stringy trash, melon seed from all that stringy trash. It'll really break up watermelon clumps. The pulp is still holding the seed. Really effective. Do it 2 or 3 times a day. I will not buy tomato seed that has not been deburred. It's just one of my major pet peeves because I use a Vibratory handheld seeder, and it just doesn't work. And so I'm doing a little bit of tomato seed, and so I asked my employee this last summer to play around and figure out if we could deburr with one of these real simple techniques. It was incredibly effective. There's probably no more than 3/4 to half a pound of tomato seed in this little metal can. And then what she's using is this little guy right here. So that's just a paint mixer, maybe costs $12. And, the can maybe is half to 2/3 full. This was her project. I just kind of, let her figure it out. And it took not only did it take the hairs off of the tomato seed so that it was deburred or debearded, but it also unclumped the seed, and we used to just kind of stick our hand in a garbage can and then just start, with rubber gloves, just start kind of breaking up the seed. I think Sarah spent no more than 20 minutes and she had it done. In fact, I made her go back and spend more time on it because I thought she had quit too soon. So, but you do have to watch what you're doing to your seed when you're getting a little bit aggressive like this. And aggressive is a relative term, but you just have to be really careful that you're not damaging the seed as well. Okay.
There's another way of, there's so many ways to do everything, but we just heard, actually, some people at High Mowing told us about putting seed in muslin bags or like heavy duty cotton sacks and putting it in a dryer with no heat on and just having it bounce around there in a bag or with a bunch of bags. And bouncing around in there for a couple hours is enough to often debeard certain seeds. So there's a lot of different techniques to experiment with. So
Yeah, if you throw some bouncy balls in the dryer as well, like little kid bouncy balls.
tennis balls.
Yeah, or no, like the little, like small bouncy balls.
Super bouncy balls.
Yeah, that will also.
Or golf balls too. I've heard of people
So
using
don't be
golf
afraid
balls.
to experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a question back there.
It depends.
It depends. The question is about, companies needing or wanting that seed deburred or dehulled or debearded, I'm sorry. And, I don't typically, I just do a little bit of tomato seed for my itty bitty seed packet business. And so I just know how I feel about fuzzy seed. So
It really comes down to if the company is machine packing it a lot into little packs, especially like tomatoes. They have a little hook on them, and it's really hard with a machine packer. Hand packing, you don't really need to debeard it, as far as I know. But that's the only reason that we would request it to be debeard or de-awned.
yeah, I just remembered that a couple years ago we were working with a food grade barley that came in with a lot of holes on it, and so we threw it into a big bucket and started taking the holes off of that barley as well. We've had a lot of success using it on some of the onion and leek seed that won't thrash out as well. So there's let your imagination take you wherever you want it to with this stuff, and just know that you got to check your seed quality. Make sure you're not damaging the seed with these techniques. So we're going to finally get into a little bit of seed cleaning. And I'm going to start off with a technique that I am not all that good at. I've had employees teach me it, and there's a lot of people over here who do an exceptional job of this technique. But when I found out that there were seed companies who didn't own one lick of seed cleaning equipment and they were using screens and box fans, I was like, wow, I'm impressed. I think that's so great. So anyway, screens, all I can say about them is get a lot of them, get a lot of different kinds, repurpose them. Like here is a plastic crate that has probably a open mesh bottom, and they are, starting to clean. This is some of the first cleaning that you do is with a screen. So you've you've stomped and danced on your seed, and now you need to start cleaning it. And the screen is the first way. You're going to start, selecting your screens so that you can eliminate a lot of the big trash that you've collected, stems, leaves. And then you can also use the screens to eliminate something that would be smaller than your seed, so like dust, maybe smaller twigs, and it's a real art to do this. I don't think I have the patience for it. I don't know, but Andrew supplied this screen up here, and it's great because it shows that you can get all sorts of screen material. There's oblongs. Like maybe you need to get splits out of beans, and so, your splits will fall through those oblong screens. There's punched round ones for a lot of brassicas that are really wonderful. And then I've invested in a lot of wire woven screens, and those are great for some of the smaller seeded like lettuces that you can use. But you just get started. You select a screen that you think the seed will pass through and fall out, and it's going to leave, your big trash on top. And it becomes really quite gratifying to see how quickly you can start cleaning seed with screens. And I would use as many screen options as you have before you start putting air on that seed lot, okay? So I would be really aggressive, and you may, by aggressive, I mean you're losing maybe a little bit of good seed to your screening process or to your air, but know that you overall are making greater strides at getting to seed quicker, to clean seed quicker, okay? This is a...
Can I just add something in real quick? A really great source to source that woven mesh you're talking about is there's a company called twp.com, and they sell all manners of stainless steel mesh by the square foot, and you can buy anywhere from just a couple square feet all the way to a huge roll. And they have really high quality screen that will last a really long time for a pretty decent price.
This,
Do they also offer like the oblong shaped screens and different?
Not from them, but
Macmillan wire will also...
Yeah.
You can just go online and chat with a salesperson and tell them that you want this gauge of metal, and that you want an oblong, and you can also go through a Clipper or a Crippen dealer, and those are the air screen separator companies that that deal with this all the time. So yeah, they're out there, and I think I brought a Macmillan catalog with me. So.
Yeah, and it's to knowing what you're looking for is also really helpful, just to know what's possible. Like there's so many different sizes of slots. There's some that are inch long, like 1/16 of an inch thick, and there's like all different sizes and shapes. But the standard screens that I would almost recommend every seed cleaner person to have is the whole set of round holes, which are usually in 1/64 of an inch. 160, not 1/64. It's like 5/64, 6/64, 7/64, and you can get like hundreds and hundreds of screens, which you don't need all of them, but get some of them because they can really save hours of work.
There's also a great link on the Cornell website, I think the PSI Public Seed Initiative website, that has all of the clipper screens and all the dimensions and which crops they work well for. So
The Commodity Traders International, they are based in the Midwest, and they sell a lot of all sorts of scales of seed cleaning equipment. On their website, they have, listed by crop, the recommended screens as well. So that's a great resource, Commodity Traders International. So, okay, so a lot of screens. Just invest. I have so much money in screens. I feel like that's where I'm screen rich,
Not cheap.
No, they're not.
Those could cost $40 a piece if you bought them.
Yeah, and the bigger they are, the more expensive they are.
You can buy the big sheets, like 5 foot by 5 foot sheets, for like $80 and cut them with tin snips. That's what I did. So, but
This, okay.
Nice screens.
yeah. Then you can Give them to your friends.
This is just a real simple, it's a Joshua Roth screen. I like round screens. You can kind of do this like you're panning for gold or something. And so it comes with 3 screens. And I'm not handy, but I've been able to make a lot of screens that can sit inside of there, just with some basic sheet metal skills. And so sometimes for really small lots, this is how we get started as well. And I don't want to, I feel like I'm rushed for time here, but this is my little desktop clipper, and it's a totally staged picture. But I just took my cilantro, I went into my cilantro garbage can, and I just grabbed everything that was in there, and this is what it looked like, because that's how we thrashed it. You know, we didn't use any kind of, you know, we just, I don't know how we thrashed it, actually, I don't remember. But the clipper will not clean this. You know, this is not what a clipper is designed to do. It's much too trashy. You gotta spend some time putting it on screens and getting it cleaned up before the clipper can do the kind of work that you want it to do. We're going to get to clipper type screens here in just a second. But you see this big piece of metal here, or, you know, it's big relative, but it's, you know, maybe 6 inches deep. And I call it the on-ramp when I'm trying to teach people how to clean seed. It's the on-ramp. And typically there's a hopper sitting on top of here. And, you know, the seed's in the hopper, and then it's going to fall through the hopper. It's going to hit the on-ramp before it gets to the screen. And that on-ramp is really important for laying down the twigs and the trash material so it's flat, you know. And then that way, as it's going over this screen, you know, it's not tempted to fall down into the hole because it's already, you know, it's been laying down flat. So I hope that makes sense to people, that you really need to take the time to clean it up before you even put it on your clipper mill. So, you know, because these are designed, you know, with a certain purpose, and the purpose is not to work on seed that is that dirty. So anyway, that's my little tidbit for that. So now we're to air. Air is wonderful. I think air is almost more wonderful than the screens are, because now we're able to start using kind of a density system on utilizing the air to do our cleaning for us. And I don't know how old these pictures are. I think maybe Steve Peters loaned this to me, but I know it's Frank's. But I don't know who it came from, but it. Okay, Jared, yeah. So, but before I really get into this, I want to make a distinction that not really is noted, but these are box fans. You see that? These are box fans. They're maybe $20. Okay, exactly $20, thank you. And they are not the wire cage fans that are probably $80. And there's a reason that we don't use, that I don't think we use the wire cage fans, and that's because they're too forceful. You know, these are gentle. There's 3 speeds, low, medium, and high. And you know, it's up to you to decide what the fan setting is when you're sprinkling your seed in front of that air, and it's dropping down in front of the fan, and it's being blown off. You know. Yeah, this is, I know, it is. I'm sorry, you won't let me get away with it, will you?
No, I won't, because that.
Here, do you want the pointer?
Okay, grab the mic too.
Frank has a very, it's cool.
Apparently,
You'll wanna
I'm the
hear
only
this.
guy that does this. I don't understand why. Andrew says he can't make it work, so.
I know, we've all tried. It's true. It's true.
Drives me crazy. Okay. This is a basic box fan. This is just a piece of this is a cardboard box right here that is built around the fan such that this fan is blowing the other way. Air is being sucked into it past the seed. It's not blowing through the seed. It's being sucked into the fan. So the light seed is actually ending up on this piece of cardboard right here, or it's going over the side. And this is falling down in a curtain into a tote. This is actually a Sterilite tote, actually. You can use them. They're cheaper. And so the reason for doing this is that the air, as it's moving into this system, is all moving smoothly, and it's not moving like a hurricane, right? If you're on the other side of the fan, on the output side, it's as if it's just gone through a hurricane and you're winnowing in a vortex. And in my opinion, the seed flies all over the place and is not accurate. Some people seem to be able to make it work. So I did invent this, and I, in fact, I started buying boxes specially for these fans, and it turns out that the fan costs exactly what a 20 square inch box costs. If you go to Office Depot and buy a 20 square inch box, it costs $16, if you can believe that. Anyway, we're now doing this out of light plywood, and one of my workers has just developed what he calls the Seed Wizard, which works like this. It's with light plywood, but it works beautifully, and it takes the hand out of it. He just puts it in a hopper, and it works. But anyway, that's the inverted fan method. That's what that is.
So I got busted.
You got busted on that. I can't tell what's going on in that other picture. That looks like a
It's a
Andrew's
vortex.
picture.
It's a vortex. So however you want to point your fan. So this is at my farm, and this is really, really dirty zinnia seed. I chose not to combine it, and that's my lesson of 2014 is I didn't fire up too many combines, and I paid for my time not doing that. But this is a vibratory seed hopper tray right here. There's a like a 200-pound capacity hopper that then spills out onto this tray that vibrates, and so it's just how I can free up people and let the machinery kind of do my winnowing for me. And the seed is walking out here, it's dropping down, so we're looking down on this whole process, and hits the air, and it's making cuts with heavy seed, heavy trash. Heavy is here. This is the mid-range, and there's still some really good seed in here, but there's also starting to get some light trash back in here, and this is just all trash or immature seed back in here. So we're making cuts, and I'll explain how I do it for before I go to an air screen separator. But this still is much too trashy for me to put on my clipper mills, and so I'll do the whole zinnia lot. And I'm keeping all the mid-seed trash and seed in one container, heavy seed in another container. This is going to the chickens. So we've run through the whole lot. We've kept these two boxes separate, and then we'll go through and we'll start running this lot, and we'll have heavy seed, and then we'll have light seed, and we'll have the dust or the fines out here. And we'll do that a couple times and then we'll also do it for the heavy stuff as well. And then we'll probably mix them together and then throw them on the clipper. I want to say that there's a dance that happens, and you start learning what that dance is over time about, do you need to put this seed back onto a screen, before you add more air? So maybe you're never quite done with the screens. Maybe you're maybe you're doing some air and then going back to screens. Because as you start cleaning this seed, you're going to start seeing like, oh man, I've got a lot of twigs. And so that means I need to maybe, go to an oblong screen and get rid of some twigs before I go back and add some more air and start really cleaning up the seed. I'm going to turn it over to my comrades here and see if they have anything else they want to quickly add, because this is not my real mode of operation, but I do utilize it certain times.
I have something to say about that. You said that you like to you do all your screening and then you start using your air. That's different than what I do. What I do, I alternate between the two. I say, first you screen, then you winnow. Actually, I start with winnowing. You winnow, screen, winnow, screen, winnow, screen. And because the screen is separating things by size and the winnowing is separating things by density, and so by alternating size, density, I feel like I get it cleaner faster without having to send things back over something. back over the screen.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I agree too. Yeah, we all have a lot to say on this matter. The mantra for me, and especially with my interns and my students, is just repeat. Like you can never repeat. Like people will send it through one screen and one pass of winnow and then be like, I can't seem to get the seed clean. And I said, well, did you send it back through the screen again on a different, setting? And this is where that record keeping, the harvest and handling record, if you can keep track of, I number on the side of every single one of our screens too, so you can say, I used, for lettuce seed, I used this, and then that will help inform you to grab the right screen to start with. But I think just being persistent and because getting seed to about 90% clean is relatively easy, and it's that 10% that takes forever. So yeah, it's really the 1%. And so if you can just be really persistent, and again, even getting seed 70 to 80% clean and then binning it up and then waiting for, a day where you have a lot of time on your hands to really get that last little, 20 or 30% has been really helpful for us. But what we find with the box fan method is that I can have all 6 of my interns having stations to winnow and screen and not get clogged up in the clipper in the fanning mill. Because then I have to clean out every little nook and cranny between seed lots. And when we have the modular box fan and tote and screen approach, I can have 6 different seed lots being cleaned at one time. And so I find that to be really helpful in a small operation.
Okay, so,
well,
I'm sorry,
so-
Andrew.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought you were putting it away.
Oh, I guess I just wanted to say that I'm probably half as fast as they are at cleaning lettuce seed, so there might be something really to the reverse box. I just couldn't figure out how to get it to work myself, so try it out. But I wanted to reiterate that screening is really a kind of an art in a way where typically you want to stop at a certain point when you're shaking the screen, because if you shake all day, you'll get every single piece through. You'll start breaking clods apart and they'll make their way through. So just like you can listen almost when you're shaking the screen, you can hear the seeds falling, and then when you hear them stop, you can just save yourself a lot of time by dumping the debris out. And my process is kind of a hybrid between the two of you guys, where I typically will do a scalping first with a big, like a nursery tray, like a 1/4-inch whole nursery flat, and scalps all the big stuff, because I feel like I can get a better winnow for the first winnow if most of that debris is gone, because it tends to fall out in clumps if it's not a little bit scalped. So I guess the lesson is that just figure it out on your own and try to be creative and pay attention to what's happening, because if you don't pay attention to what's actually happening, what the seed is actually doing, you'll miss a lot of good information.
Yeah, and your intuition really pays in that. It's always like stopping 1 second before you think you should, almost like you think, and then otherwise you make a lot of work for yourself.
Yeah, and another thing is I notice this with a lot of novice seed cleaners is they obsess about getting every last seed. Don't obsess about it. I mean, unless it's such a valuable seed that you do need every last seed. But generally speaking, as Andrew was saying, it's kind of an art as to when you stop rubbing through that screen and just, you're going to toss a little bit off. Or if on the fan it blows away and it's off the tarp and you go, oh, I see a couple of seeds out there. Don't worry about it. Or like when you're doing beans and some of the beans stay in the pods, forget about those. You only want the ones that are going to be easily coming out of the pod. So with all of that, just keep that in mind, because you got to keep moving forward, because it's time consuming.
Okay. I see some hands going up. I'm going to keep moving. Save your questions for when we're done. Sure.
I was just going to say I do a lot of small seed lots.
So I use a clipper type air screen cleaner, or there's also Crippens, and there's a lot of different other brand names out there. So I'm just going to briefly talk about how they work, but it's basically a combination of screens and air. And so we're combining what we just talked about with screens and with air. So, but this works, there's two, these are really old school style, and they are only 2 screen models. This is the Clipper 2B Special. Do you want to know why it's special? because there's an auger that can fit inside and auger the seed up into a bag or a box or a bin or something. It's not attached right now, but that's what made it special. And then this is a desktop clipper that we are really handy. I think I paid more for this desktop clipper than I did for one of my combines. So, they're the smaller it is, the more expensive it is. It seems like when it comes to seed equipment. But there's 2 screens in here, and we've chosen the top screen so that the seed that we want to save will pass through on that top screen. But then when it hits that bottom screen, it's been selected so that the seed will ride on top of that screen. And then, so seed falls through, stops on the second one. What's stopping on top of the first one is your big trash. And it's just going over the edge and going out a discharge onto the other side. The material that falls through that bottom screen are the fines, the small twigs, maybe your split seed, depending on what it is that you're cleaning, and it just falls down, and it comes out this discharge here. Really simple technology. The seed that has been stopped or been contained, or it hasn't fallen through that bottom screen, will roll down, and it's going to hit air from this fan right here, and the fan. This is where it gets critical for how you set your air for making cuts on good seed, light seed, heavy seed, and so you have seed falling and trash falling out of this hood right here after it's hit the air, and so this is where that trash is falling, is down in here, and the good seed is landing in a box down here on the floor of the mill, and what we'll do is we'll put a small lot of seed in the hopper, and we'll run it, and then we'll turn the mill off, and we'll look at what's happened. We'll come down here on all fours and start looking at what we've blown off. Have we blown off good seed? If we've blown off good seed, is it okay, or do we need to blow off less? So would we reduce our air? And then we'll look at what we've caught in our seed box down here. And are we getting a lot of trash that we could maybe go back in and reselect for screens to keep the trash out of here? So the air does a great job at this point. And I just want to say that we've done lots of germ testing with lots. And what's falling in here could be maybe like 90%. And what's falling out here right below, so the heaviest of what we've blown off can easily be 70%. So trust that air. It's working for us. It's doing a good job. So how do we know if it's good seed or bad seed? Well, if it's leek or onion seed, what we want to find out here is seed that we can crush. We want to just be able to crush it with our fingertips, and that seed wall is collapsing on us. So that means that we are blowing off the seed that didn't get pollinated, the lightweight seed. Same thing with maybe a cucurbit. We do a lot of melons and watermelons, and so we're always taking that seed and snapping it, seeing if there's an embryo inside, and then we'll take and dig around in this box too. So you just have to slow it. You're not going to. The first hour of seed cleaning is kind of setup time. You're selecting screens so that the machine will do the work for you. And this is just a little desktop clipper, and I guess I threw that in because scale. It's all about having scale appropriate equipment, and I'm not going to put 2 pounds of pepper seed on my clipper on this 2B special, but I will put it on my desktop clipper, and it'll work. It'll flow much more efficiently. And the machine will do the work for me because I have such limited seed on it. So you need to be thinking about how much seed you're going to clean and the scale of equipment that you have. So I wish I could tell you that there was like one perfect seed cleaning piece of equipment, that's all you had to acquire. You know, that would be my perfect world, but it's not possible. It's, sometimes you just have to, start with your screens and your air or your clipper, and then you have to move on to the next piece of equipment. And so I'm going to take you through just a few quick slides of different pieces of equipment. I don't know how I'm doing on time. 5 minutes? Okay, well, we're going to fly through this then, and I can't be as detailed as I had hoped. So, but this, we all have shop vacs that blow air. Really simple technology. I would much rather use a shop vac than compressed air, because this is just much more controlled. You're not going to be spitting seed all over the place like you would with compressed air. So consider it an option that, you could use a shop vac if you wanted to. This is an air column separator. Works really well with small seeded crops that you need to do some final cleaning on. Plans are popping up all over the internet for how to make these things. It's really cool. All you need is, a fan, motor, and then go on the internet and look for plans, or you can buy these as well. But doing some really fine separation here. Obviously, you wouldn't put 2,000 pounds of onion seed through this, but for certain scale lots, it might be just the ticket for you. So this is a spiral separator, and it's been cleverly designed to separate rolling from non-rolling seed, or even stuff that's in your seed lot. There's no motors with this little thing. It's all gravity. Seed goes in the top, it hits a cone that just kind of gets the seed flowing to hit these flights of corkscrews. There's two flights. There's an inner flight and an outer flight. And so gravity is feeding the seed down. Anything that rolls, centrifugal force will start throwing this out to the outer flight. It's wonderful. And the rolling seed or the rolling objects in your seed lot will exit out a certain way, and then maybe your non-rolling seed will exit out another way. I think I hit this on the nail when I was doing hairy vetch and rye seed. Did a perfect separation the first time. It's not heard of in seed cleaning. Usually you have to rerun and keep making cuts. This is, I grow a lot of bean seed, being in southern Idaho, and this is called a velvet roller, and these are a pair of rollers covered in like a velvet fabric. And the velvet fabric is meant to grab the rough edges of your seed lot. And so rough edges would be stems, hopefully not too many stems, but clods and split beans. And so what happens is you feed the seed at the top here. It comes in, it hits, it follows the crease of those two rollers. And the rollers are turning away from each other, all right, if you can imagine that. And the seed will hit that crease and get flung out. And I'm sorry, not the seed, but the trash. Anything with a rough edge that fabric can catch will throw it out. And then the seed keeps traveling down that crease and it exits out. And typically, this was made by a research facility in Kimberly, Idaho, and they were doing small lots. And so this is a really sweet little device that they made. Typically, you find them in pairs of 4 or 8. So, that's what we use for a lot of our seed cleaning production. There's a great variable on how you can control the rate of those rollers. So the faster they're turning, the cleaner you'll get your seed, but you also throw out some clean seed. This is a gravity table, and it's probably the one piece of equipment that we all should own. It's an amazing way to separate seed by density. Unfortunately, you probably won't find them used, and if you're going to buy them new, they're going to cost tens of thousands of dollars depending on what size you buy. And you're going to have some extra money kicking around to hire somebody to teach you how to work it typically. They're really great, but real quickly, there's a deck on here. It's either covered with cloth or wire. Air comes up from the bottom of the machine, forces it through that deck. It's going to float the seed that you filled on the deck, and it's floating. And then there's a rocking mechanism, as well as you've also determined the angle of that deck. And it's going to walk this heavy seed up the deck, and the light seed will go down, and you start making cuts and collecting where you want your prime seed. And again, you're always rerunning your lots on these pieces of equipment. You know, it's seldom is it ever like a one-pass perfect, you nailed it, seed cleaning operation. So that's some of the equipment. Seed moisture and germ. Have we talked about this? I don't know. Okay. You know, you can't store wet seed. It needs to be dry. And typically, we have a problem of being too dry in my climate. And so I would just caution you to pay attention to what the moisture is. This is just a portable moisture meter. It looks like a wide mouth thermos up here. The cap comes off, you pack it with seed, and you program it for your crop. And then you do this, I think, at least 3 times, and it'll tell you what your moisture is. And really effective. Oh, minutes, if not seconds. Yeah, it's pretty fast. Yeah, and it's amazing all the different crops that are captured in there. I'm like, it's pretty fun. So. You said they're cheap? No, they're not cheap. I think they cost under $1,000. Under $1,000. 00 something. I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, you know, we keep these on our combines or near our combines, and we're just checking. Like I said, you know, typically, you know, we get too dry, and so we want to make sure that we're not combining beans that are too dry, and then we're splitting them as they go through, you know, the combine mechanisms and everything. So just pay attention that it's not too wet when you store it. And in the OSA handbook, there's great techniques and funky math on how to figure out your seed moisture. You can do it your own. I gathered these 2 photos from my comrades up here because the seed is being dried down and out of direct sunlight. And I think that's really important to remember, that you don't want, you know, your seed cooking in a greenhouse when you're drying it down. Maybe it's going to get too hot and you're gonna have some seed damage. So, you know, this is inside of a shed. The quinoa is drying inside of a shed. Is this Bill Reynolds' farm?
No, actually, that was Tim Franklin
Okay.
in Southern Oregon.
But I kind of liked it because it's inside of a building. It looks like little bunk beds or something, and they're screen drawers, it looks like. And I think, you know, I think that's really clever of, you know, putting your plants on there or putting your seed on there to dry down. So, and I'll just quickly say for germ, it's what we all live and thrive by, and so, you know, it's important to us, and you can do your own germ testing. And I think it's written up in the OSA handout that you got today. I don't trust myself. I really don't. I feel like I'm going to fudge the numbers. You know, I don't trust myself. So I'm happy to send my seed out to a seed lab, pay anywhere from $20 to $25, and get an official germ. It's an important piece of paper that I can then share with the seed company that I'm working with as well. So that's just how I've chosen to do it. You know, it's like, you know, I really don't trust myself. I'd probably be rounding up instead of down or something, so.
It's also really time consumptive.
Okay, closing in on the end here. Just a quick reminder, you gotta label your seed lots. I know you're young and you have agile minds, but you're gonna forget. You just will forget. It's really easy. This is inside of our wet seed greenhouse. We just use blue tape on the screens as we're changing our you know, as we bring seed in and out. The thing to remember is always put a seed label inside of the container where your seed is, and then also put a label on the outside. And that's because if the label gets torn off, you can open up your seed box and say, oh, okay, that's what this is. So it's just a good backup to keep labeling your seed. And then keeping notes, I can't stress, I hate keeping notes, but man, it has saved me so many times. You know, my husband, in fact, he'll make sure that he's starting to nag me about keeping notes now. So it's pretty funny that we've evolved that way. But keeping notes, you can make your own form, however you want to set it up for you and your employees. And I will say that doing both of the seed labeling and the notes makes the organic inspector so incredibly happy. So keep that in mind if you're a certified organic producer. When we do our audits and everything, this is really important information here. And if you're not looking at your seed through a loop or a hand lens or microscope, you're just plain crazy because it's beautiful. You got to look at it up close and see what's going on, because you'll find out if it's clean enough, maybe you've damaged it, and then you'll be in awe of just how strikingly beautiful it is up close and everything. So just quick, be patient, add a lot of air, be really aggressive with your cleaning. Most of the time, me and my employees, we quit cleaning seed too soon. We need to just take another couple of hours and get it even more perfect and more pure. And then, of course, my lesson of 2014 was I didn't use my combines that much, and I should have, because I really got an appreciation for what kind of clean seeding they did during the harvest time. And then last, just a few resources. You have an amazing, I'm sure you live in an amazing farm community. Utilize some of those elders, some of those people who may have done some seed production. Utilize us here in this room. I'm happy to answer questions if you email me. I won't necessarily call you back, but email me. Dr. John Navazio's book is great. OSA's manual that you get today is wonderful. Jeff McCormick has written some organic seed production manuals from the Southeast, and I try and reread those every year because I just pick up the little nuances and nuggets that either I need to be reminded of or that I've missed reading over the time. And then Jared showed me this manual. It's available online, and I think if you search by the internet for Ag Handbook 354, you'll find it. I can't remember how many pages it is, but it's wonderful, and it's the only thing that I've really seen that shows you how to set up a seed cleaning mill. It kind of takes you through the thought process of, your equipment and everything. So I appreciated that. So that's it. Thank you for your patience with me, and grow some seed.